let's start. Hey y'all, I'm Jean Mosier. I am your CAC chair, and with me I've got Mark Turner, my co-chair, or I don't titles are yeah, co-chair, and then Brian Ryan is our secretary.
You can call me whatever.
Lackey, yes, my underling. No, I don't call people that. Yeah, so it's good to see you guys. I'm super excited about this presentation we've got. We've got Sean Driscoll here, and he is going to talk about Vision Zero, which is all about traffic safety. And I've already been harassing him about my ideas that I want to see, but I would love to see what he has planned. So take it away. Oh, shoot, I forgot you. Sorry, don't take it away. Everybody pretend like this. Officer Hinton, I even had it written down. You're okay, I'd like to introduce Officer Hinton.
I can't compete with that. I try to help with the traffic balance. We're kind of along the same lines there.
Next time I look at my notes.
Thank you, Gene. It's a pleasure. Good to see everybody tonight. Thank you for coming out. I'm Officer Eric Hinton. For those of you who don't know me, I work out of the Northeast District Community Squad. Sergeant Talley in the back, and retired Captain Cody Hunt over there, who is a mentor here at Lions Park. But I just wanted to touch on a few things with you all. With it getting warmer, with the time change, so it's light out. It's nice having the light out and activities out here, but with more activities, more people being out longer, just making sure we're locking our cars and not leaving any valuables, firearms, that sort of things in there. And if you see something, definitely give us a call and let us know. I know there's a lot of officers that are coming by here doing security checks and they're getting out. But the more times people call if they're seeing something going on, how you doing, Miss Sue? Then the more we'll be in the area to help deter that crime. So with the juveniles and the firearms, I know they mentioned somebody possibly waving a firearm around last week. So kids, when they're getting their hands on these firearms that are stolen out of vehicles, most times unlocked vehicles. So making sure we're locking them up and telling our neighbors about that. And then tax season, make sure we're being aware of the frauds. And I don't know if you're getting them. I'm getting these texts just about every day from the tolls, about the tolls. I was up to Jersey not long ago, and I'm going through the one on 540 over there. I don't know how they get that information, but if it says that you're due the next day or something like that, or they're trying to make you put pressure on you to do something quick, stop, take a deep breath, think about it for a minute, and don't get caught up in that, because I've been getting them just about every other day, it seems. And then with IRS tax things, make sure they're not going to text you, that sort of thing. So a lot of that's certified mail, and when you see it, it gets your attention. So those are the two big things I wanted to touch on. Does anybody have anything that they're seeing or they're concerned with in the area? No?
If somebody does feel like they've been the victim of fraud or something like that.
Excellent question. You can always, if you're not sure, you can always call the non-emergency number or any of the police station districts and touch base with an officer there, and they'll be able to advise you. A lot of the stuff, if you're not sure about it, I'll say just assume it's fraud these days. And if you're reaching out, that's one thing. But when people are texting you or calling you, just be a little more conscious of that. And again, they're going to try to scare you and try to make you make a bad decision, and they're going to try to do it quick. So if they say you got to do it now, got to be paid today, or they want to keep you on the phone, that's a big red flag. So, and then gift cards won't get you out of things like that. So, yes, ma'am.
I think if this is appropriate, it's also the time of year for outdoor music.
Mm.
Just wondered if there's any update on the ordinance or any businesses that are playing music allowed.
Good question. So anytime they changed the ordinance not long ago, so it's I don't know the exact wording, but it's something that would. Do you know the?
The big thing that we can encourage people to do, if you have a business that's playing a lot of noise after 10 o'clock, is reach out to our code enforcement unit with the police department. And that unit will come out and use the sound meters, things like that, to help see if there's an issue that needs to be addressed on our side of things.
But I know with some of the areas. I know with Bowstring, we had talked about that one not long ago. They were cited not long ago. So the more calls we're getting about it, I had somebody call me about one today up in the Northeast District, further up on Millbrook Road. But the more calls we're getting, the more of a case we can build. So if you're hearing it and it's a nuisance and a problem, we're calling and it's getting documented in our system. Because every time there's a call, it goes into our CAD system and it's logged. So we can go back and look for noise calls at a certain address and we can pull up all those calls. So that helps us to build that case. Thank you. Anybody else have anything? All right, well, thank you very much, and thank you. Hopefully we can fix all of our traffic problems. Mr. Sean here.
Yeah. Thank you, Officer Hinton. All right, now we've got Sean Driscoll, and he is with Vision Zero, which is part of the city. So I called you the manager of it, but I'm not sure if I did that right. Are you the manager?
I guess I am.
All right.
Yeah.
There we go. Self-appointed, or appointed by Gene.
Do I have to use that?
Does he have
Yeah,
to use that?
if you would mind.
It is required.
Okay. Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Sean Driscoll. I'm the Vision Zero program manager for the city of Raleigh. The transportation department is broken out into 5 different groups. Okay, so traffic engineering, transportation planning, transit, parking, and street maintenance. So I work in the traffic engineering group and specifically safety projects. So I'll go over what Vision Zero is, but this is just to highlight that there are many cities across the country that are moving toward this goal to reduce and eliminate fatalities and serious injuries within our transportation network. You can see what ours looks like. So what is Vision Zero? Again, it's the goal to reduce and eliminate fatalities and serious injuries. So we have about 20 to 30,000 crashes a year in Raleigh. Over the last few years, between 40 and 60 were fatal. Around 200 to 300 are serious injury crashes. Those are debilitating or life-altering injury crashes. So those are the ones we investigate and look into and try to prevent in the future. So we're not trying to prevent crashes, we just don't want crashes to be fatal. This is just my group, and also to highlight, we have many partners outside of just the city of Raleigh. Raleigh is unique in most of the large corridors and large roadways are NCDOT owned and maintained. Unlike Charlotte. So like your Glenwoods, Western, Capitol, Saunders, New Bern, those are all state owned and maintained roadways. So we try to have a good, close relationship with the state, because as we propose improvements or we make improvements along those corridors, they inevitably are like the approver of that. And we work with Wake County Public Schools, Governor Highway Safety Program, amongst many others. So what does my group do? So it's general safety projects. So we identify deficiencies across the city, either independently or through citizens or other employees across the city. We do crash diagrams. We look for crash patterns at intersections. So we basically take all the crash reports from an intersection, create a diagram, draw a bunch of lines, look for patterns, and then come up with safety countermeasures that will directly address that crash pattern. Like, for example, a permissive left turn is when you have like the green ball or the flashing yellow arrow, you're trying to yield to traffic as you turn left. Those can result in angle crashes, which are the most deadly, which we try to prevent. So an example would be just to make that a protected left turn. So eliminating the need to yield, giving you the green arrow or red arrow to make the left turn. It's also safer for pedestrians as well, stuff like that. So we also manage all the school zones and school areas. So the 100+ elementary, middle, and high schools, we manage all the signage directly off campus, school zone, school area, pavement markings, as well as work with Wake County Public Schools to identify sidewalk gaps, create always stops, lower speed limits, traffic calming projects like speed humps around schools to increase connectivity and just try to make an overall safer transportation environment for our vulnerable road users, like our kids. And then we also manage a streetlight program, which I'll get into a little bit more. I don't want dive into that yet. So this is just some examples of projects we did and just some numbers of the millions of dollars of projects we've gotten funded through NCDOT. They have access to funding that we don't have access to. So again, we identify deficiencies, put projects together, put cost estimates together, do like 5 to 10% conceptual designs, give those to the state to make it very easy for them to apply for funding. A HAWK is a high intensity activated crosswalk. You'll see those. We just did a couple on Avon Ferry. There's one on Hillsborough in front of the YMCA. There's one on Sunnybrook by Wake Med. That is a signalized crosswalk for just pedestrians. It has the red light. It has a stop bar. Cars are required to stop. There's certain warrants that need to be met to justify those. And then the 5 Points intersection, we've done some changes to those, like protected left turns. That one's kind of a mess. There's actually, it's gotten better though. There's actually a public meeting tomorrow at the 5 Points Center for Active Adults to finalize that 5 Point study. So if you're interested any more on that project, I recommend you go to that tomorrow. Just some stuff on schools and some types of projects we build around schools, signalizing intersections directly like off of campus. So we're constructing a signalized intersection for Riverbend Elementary right now. We're about to do 2 for Wakefield Middle School, Wakefield High School, Harris Creek Elementary, Dillard Middle. RFBs are rectangular rapid flashing beacons. You'll start to see these a little more around Raleigh and the MUTCD, which is like our guiding ordinance for nationwide. It's the manual for uniform traffic control devices. It's like our Bible. It's like the guideline we use for creating consistency across the country, but also getting approval to use certain like countermeasures and devices that have been studied. Those were just approved, I guess is what I'm getting to. And we have 13 in the hoppers, like 6 or 7 going on around schools. These are for mid-block crossings as well, just like HAWKs. We don't put these at intersections. They're mid-block locations. It's just a glorified strobe light. It flashes to bring more visibility to the pedestrian to let vehicles know that there is someone trying to cross there. So still a yielding situation for that pedestrian, but just, again, bringing more visibility that someone's there trying to get across. And then we also do always stop, so we do lots of flat work improvements, like upgrading ADA ramps around schools. This is just the RFB. And then street lights. So there's 30,000 streetlights in Raleigh that Duke owns and maintains. We pay the power bill for those, basically. So it's around between $500,000 and $600,000 a month. It's like $7 million a year to keep the streetlights on across the city. We do own like 150 streetlights on Hillsborough Street in front of NC State, which we'll never do again. We are not in the streetlight owning or maintaining business, and we have on-call contractors that do that for us. It's very expensive. That's a whole nother story, but Duke owns and maintains all the streetlights. So if there's an outage, we report it to Duke. We identify like black areas. We create improvement projects for those. And there's some really like alarming statistics too about how much safety can increase using streetlights around intersections. This is a project we did, like trying to light up some of the bridge underpasses that are really dark. I have some few maps to show you. This is just identifying the 2021 to 2023 45 fatalities we had across the city. It doesn't matter what the total is every year. About a third of our fatalities are pedestrians, and 70% were drivers, and then 70% were also identified. 50% were black, 17 were Hispanic. So disproportionately, our black community is experiencing more fatalities than their representation across the city. So we know there are areas that we need to focus on, and I'll get into what our study is, but this is kind of the maps we did before that. This is a heat map of all the fatalities and serious injuries across the city. These black areas are our historically transportation disadvantaged areas identified by the census. And then sure enough, you can see some of the hot spots revolve around those areas. So that area makes up about a fifth of Raleigh. So 100,000 of our 500,000 people that live here live in that area. But 54% of the fatalities are happening in that area too.
There's the
That is probably Raleigh Boulevard, just north of New Bern. Oh, it's probably, yeah. I got some other maps I'll show you. Okay, so these are just fatality statistics for 2023, and actually they matched 2024 very close. We had 42 last year, but still down from 22. Again, like 20,000 crashes in Raleigh every year. Those are reported crashes. Who knows how many more there actually are. But this is to point out that a lot of the fatalities happen on those big corridors. So the Glenwoods, Westerns, New Berns, Capitals, the NCDOT roadways. So again, we got to work closely with NCDOT to try to get this number down. And then again, this is highlighting that just a third are pedestrians. So a lot of words on this. Don't worry about reading it. We have $1 million comprehensive safety action plan funded from FHWA. Back when the bipartisan infrastructure bill got passed, there was this push, and the federal government allocated like billions of dollars for traffic safety projects. So the city of Raleigh, we're in that too. So that's what our study was funded from. We're going to complete the study at the end of this year, and then if funding is available next spring, we're going to apply for up to $30 million in implementation funding. So we're like halfway through our project now. We just completed 5 public meetings, and we have an online survey that I would encourage you to take because it closes Wednesday. These are the maps we've created from this project, and the big thing with this is going to help me focus the limited resources I have on the areas of Raleigh that are going to have the greatest impact. Because we get pulled in all parts of Raleigh, and frustratingly, we don't work in the areas that need the most because those areas don't complain at all. It's the areas that have the greatest, North Raleighs, that we hear from all the time, where the world is ending, and we get pulled in those directions, and then frustratingly, I know I need to be in the Southeast, but I can't. So I'm going to have these maps, and moving forward, I'm going to be able to say, here's some justifiable proof, here's my priority list, this is how things are going to go down. This is our high injury network. So this is like 10 years of fatalities and serious injuries mapped across the city. The red dots are the top 20. The orange are the top 20 corridors. So this is data driven. So it's kind of our reactive approach. And this is our proactive approach. So this is our high risk networks. This is not data driven. This is like variables or risk factors we created and then like mapped it. So there is some overlap, but there are also some corridors that don't. And like from there, we're trying to learn whether those are something that's unique about those corridors, why there isn't a crash pattern, or more likely it's our proactive approach to try to get ahead before a corridor starts experiencing crash patterns.
I'm sorry, I'm really excited about this.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea of why you think, like, are there themes you're seeing, like trees, why the ones that are high risk aren't seeing those crashes?
Why? Yeah, I can touch on that. Yeah. Because I'm going to go into some of that here in a sec. Good question, though. So you're in District C, so y'all are like kind of this sliver here, which I could touch on a little bit more, but the obvious ones, like your New Bern and your MLK are the most dangerous. And then Capitol, of course, and then Raleigh Boulevard's on here, and then a scattering of intersections that need improvements at. So again, like these ones in red, we'll be able to go to, identify the deficiencies. Does it need reflective backplates to help with red light running? Does it need high-vis crosswalks? Does it need ramps? LPI and APS devices are something you also see. So what an LPI is, it's a leading pedestrian interval. That gives you the walk sign before the parallel traffic you're moving with gets the green light. So say that person who might be turning, you're not just sitting there staring at each other wondering who's going to go first. You've already established your presence in the roadway. Then the APS devices are the accessible pedestrian signals. That's for people that have a hard time seeing, can hear. It's either it's not a beacon. It either like kind of has an auto tone to it, or it will talk to you to help you cross the street. So again, we're like halfway through our study. In the second half, we're going to be looking at those risky areas, identifying projects, putting some cost estimates together, and trying to move forward with getting more funding. We meet with the crash reconstructive unit and traffic enforcement with RPD, like monthly, to go over all the fatalities and some of the serious injury crashes, determine if there's anything that my group needs to do from an infrastructure standpoint. 85% of the crashes in 2023 were arguably behavioral issues: speeding, run off the road, DUI, no seatbelt, and distracted driving. So just about all the pedestrian fatalities were not in a marked crosswalk at a signalized intersection. So, I mean, I can't speak specifically
To some of those, whether they were intoxicated or not. This is more highlighting the driver behavior. That it is them crossing not at a crosswalk at a large roadway like a Capitol or even a New Bern. Sometimes at night, sometimes within an unlit area when drivers, just aren't expecting someone to be there. I mean, a lot of times, like, RPD tells us that people do slow down, and it's just unfortunate that it couldn't slow down fast enough. Sometimes people don't slow down at all because they just don't see them. So we do have some intersections that are worse than others and some corridors that are worse than others for pedestrian crashes, which is alarming. So, like, what I'm trying to get to here is we're working on our messaging as well to the city. And as part of this study, we want to develop like some more messaging campaigns, some educational awareness, like get some billboards up, some stuff like that. Like those things you used to see on TV back in the day, like just wear your seatbelt, could save a lot of lives in the city. And then for the pedestrian crashes, we also want to bring more messaging and visibility to the pedestrians, like around those areas. Like Capitol Calvary, for example, is a really dangerous intersection. If I was a transit rider, I would want a sign there saying like 8 people have passed away within the vicinity of this intersection in the last few years. Studies have shown that with messaging like this, people respond much better with just a fact, letting them like establish their own opinion or decision instead of saying wear your seatbelt. I'll say something like 3 out of 4 people in 2023 passed away weren't wearing a seatbelt. That might make you think maybe I should wear a seatbelt. So trying to get some of this out there, you should see it more. Visit our website. If you go to raleighnc.gov and search Vision Zero, you can see all the projects my group's working on and some of the other campaigns we have going. This just highlights some of the things we've completed. Just updating school signage at schools. The downtown pedestrian phase 1 improvement project my group did that lowered the speed to 25 downtown, implemented no right turn on reds, implemented LPIs, that leading pedestrian interval, and then we also reduced or eliminated all the dual left turns besides one, because those were resulting in PED crashes too. We got downtown PED phase 2 funded through NCDOT, and that's going to construct 12 to 13 raised crosswalks at existing mid-block crosswalks downtown. And so we like those better than the RFBs because there's nothing mechanical. And if someone were to get hit, it's at a much lower speed. And there's a graph that shows survivability based on speed, and it's exponential, like really fast once you get into like that 30s. So anything we can do to lower speeds at crashes for pedestrians will go a long way in survivability. Just things we're working on next. We're building a bunch of signalized intersections at schools. We also have a $2 million project funded on MLK from Wilmington to Poole. That's gonna construct like intersection improvements and signalizing some missing locations, but it's a lot of ramps, high-vis crosswalks, making sure there's PED crossings at all legs, stuff like that. And then I mentioned the downtown PED phase 2 project, and that's all I got. Happy to answer any questions.
Boulevard and I think it's New Hope Church where there's all these bump outs. Is that something that like you guys have studied, and is that going to happen other places as well?
Yeah. Yeah, good question. So within Transportation Planning Group is the Neighborhood Traffic Management Program. So they only do traffic calming projects on roadways that have less than 5,000 vehicles a day. It's like the threshold. And then the speeds on those roadways are usually like 25 and 35 miles per hour. That is a separate group. I can get you to the correct person who manages those projects. Those are citizen-driven projects. I think we identify some areas where we want to implement traffic calming, but as of right now, the process that's in place with the city that's part of the petition still in some capacity, where we create a project, we let people know, they vote on it. Citizens do vote projects down for traffic calming, and it either gets revisited a year later because the people that got it voted down that wanted it try to keep it going, or we move forward. And those, we construct about 20 roads a year, and there's probably like a 2 or 3 year waiting time once you get your roadway approved for that. So there's like thousands of streets across the city that are eligible. And so I think our group does a pretty good job delivering what they can. But again, I can get you in contact with the correct person if you email me.
Crosses
Yeah.
Capitol.
Atlantic at Whitaker Mill.
When it's going, Fenton Road crosses Capitol, just in this neighborhood.
By the
Oh,
seafood?
Benton, gotcha.
And Capitol is going north.
Yes.
There's a bus stop right there. And I see people there should be a crosswalk there. I mean, people are getting off the bus and they have to cross the street.
Yeah.
And it just seems to me like a really dangerous thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's, I know the location you're speaking of, but just in general terms, transit has an initiative to build stops like every quarter mile. You know, it's a convenience thing. It helps increase ridership. But unfortunately, that puts some stops in not the safest locations that doesn't have the infrastructure around it to support people walking to and from that stop. So my group is working with transit to do a better job of building infrastructure around stops that's very highly driven based on existing ridership. And if we can build there's a lot that goes into building a mid-block crosswalk. We just can't just put a crosswalk out there. Without additional infrastructure, it either needs to be signalized or have a hawk or RFB associated with it. So in some locations it works better than others, and even I myself am guilty of taking the shortest path across the road where it's most convenient. I do it every day walking downtown, and this is all I work on. So even though the answer what you're going to hear is how do I put this? We expect someone to walk out of the way at least a little bit. You know, we can't put signalized intersections everywhere because we can't afford to do so. We understand there's going to be some inconvenience, but people have to walk to the signalized intersections to cross the street if they want the best option for success. But to your point, and it's a great observation, there are a lot of transit stops in some bad locations that, again, you can email me. There's some specific ones, and we can work with transit to determine if there's some low-hanging fruit infrastructure, maybe more signage, or even a small sidewalk gap or something that we can try to address to increase that safety and connectivity.
There is a light there.
I think in that case, it's at a light, and there's no crosswalk.
Okay, so yeah, that would be a good one for us to look at. I'm not sure why there's no crosswalk. Maybe it's a ramp thing. Maybe it's like a connectivity thing, and that would be why there's not. So we would need to so we won't build ramps or a ped crossing without sidewalks. So I know, frustrating.
No, I'm just saying that's a weird spot, Capitol Boulevard. The only place you could cross in Capitol Boulevard with a crosswalk would be to walk a mile up to Crabtree.
In great danger trying to do that, there's no sidewalks there.
Well, you know Capitol Boulevard, it's
For sure.
split,
Yeah,
and Fenton is what connects between the two.
yeah.
Nobody should be crossing Capitol Boulevard virtually anywhere, but especially there, but right, there's a traffic light, there's a bus stop.
There's a and
there's-
people,
and people cross.
and that's Route 1, which is a very heavily used bus route. And there's definitely people who, I think they work on the other side of Capitol, and they have to cross there. They're taking their life in their hands.
Yeah.
Every time they do that.
Yeah, please send me an email with a picture or just even the stop number or just a description, and I can look into it more. I can get the ridership from transit and determine, like, you know, if there's anything that can be done. And it might, and we can do a crash diagram if we haven't already. It might be on our high injury network already, so we can look into that. Yes.
Do you work with people doing the sidewalks, or are you separate?
Yeah, we work, so street maintenance handles most of the sidewalk work because they have the equipment to do so. They, like 90% of their time is maintaining existing infrastructure. They do some new work, but we rely heavily on contractors to do those large scale improvements for us. Street maintenance manages all the street resurfacing as well as the flat work contract. The flat work is ramps and sidewalk panels. They do some gaps, but that usually requires design to add like a sidewalk gap, which also requires curb and gutter and sometimes pipe stormwater infrastructure. It's just a trickling effect of trying to build a sidewalk. It's actually like pretty costly in a lot of places. My group does provide some funding to street maintenance for ramps and some sidewalk improvements, but they bid those out on a very large scale across the entire city to get the best unit price.
Gotcha. So question, the $30 million that y'all
Yeah.
get, do you all already know what you're gonna spend it on?
Not yet. So good question. So that's what the end of this study is working on, is identifying what projects we want to move forward with. It's up to $30 million, and it would be an 80-20 match. And I mean, I know in this next upcoming fiscal year, I'm not going to have $5 million for a match. So I think it's going to be like a tiered approach of how we go about it. And like similar to Charlotte, feels up to me. I don't think we want to dump like major resources on singular locations. I think we're going to try to find a way to spread the love across the city the best we can, especially within our historically disadvantaged area, like those LPI and APS devices and flat work and just kind of some low-hanging, less costly improvements that we can make at many locations. But I mean, the Capitol, Capitol was built in the 50s. You know, it's a 75-year-old roadway we've inherited that we're like trying to fix and do our best to make work. But you know, I say that because there are some things that we've just inherited and would be incredibly costly to fix. So I hate to say we're continuing to put a Band-Aid on it, but again, we're working with the state to try to figure out the best we can to make Capitol, because we are having a lot of like pedestrians pass on Capitol trying to get across in many locations. Yeah.
In that survey you said, did we just go into like the city transportation?
Yeah. If you just visit RaleighNC.gov and go to Vision Zero, I have like 2 or 3 links off the page, but one of them is for the Safe Streets and Roads for All survey. We've had almost 1,200 people across the city fill it out with like 4,000 comments. Our consultant's gonna digest and provide a summary for us, which we're gonna share with the public. But it's an opportunity just to share your concerns and areas that you'd like to see improved.
Well, that was my jam. You know that.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
We really appreciate you coming. Thank you.
One thing,
Oh.
you talked about the data, so it's your expectation that once you get the data from the study, you'll be able to prioritize those areas based on the data rather than because I complained about something.
Because you complain about something does carry weight, and there are citizen concerns that, I mean, not often, but sometimes we do hear citizen concern that is something we're unaware of, a location that is completely unbeknownst to us that we will investigate. And a lot of those are visual obstruction issues, entering, exiting neighborhoods, overgrown trees, bushes. So we do speed studies to lower speeds. We get lots of requests for speed limit lowering. Those are only initiated really by citizens, and sometimes they do result in the speed being lowered. So I'm not going to deter citizens, but for this project standpoint, I have to focus the limited resources we have on the areas that are going to have the greatest impact to reduce serious injuries and fatalities. And once I catch up with that over like a course of a decade and try to get the reactive approach under control, then we'll, as resources become available, we'll be more proactive in other areas to try to start preventing
I
crashes.
very much support data-driven
Cool.
investments, because if you can save 50 people for the one, sorry for the one,
Yeah.
you might as well focus where most people will benefit.
Yeah, this will be
I'd like to see more data.
this will be a great toolkit and resource for us in the future to lean on to support the decision making, that because we get questioned all the time, why'd you do this here and not there? You only care about this area. You know, that can be tough. So this is a really good way to prioritize the need and lean on it.
And I think you already said this, but I just did
Mm-hmm.
you say that most of your money comes from the state or from the federal government?
So we get like $500,000 a year from council. My group does. But the state has probably gotten like $10 to $15 million of projects funded for us on their behalf. Did I say that right? On our behalf. They've got it funded for us. They are managing a number of those projects, but we're also in the process of like getting municipal agreements from them for us to manage it because it's becoming too much. And some of that is state money, some of that is federal money. So I think to answer the question, like the large chunks is federally or sometimes state. The smaller stuff is us. But we try to use our money as like a force multiplier to get other projects funded.
So you could possibly lose a lot of money, seeing how a lot of people.
Yeah, that's a tough question. I mean, I know some of the stuff I have right now is secure, but to your point, I mean, starting next year, I don't know if this implementation bucket's going to be there for the entire country. And if it's not, that's okay. We still have our own funding. Like, we've been doing just fine without it. And there are countermeasures we can do, like that permissive to protective left turn that doesn't cost anything than like 10 hours of an engineer's time resealing some plans. So we're finding ways to make improvements. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
All right. Well, we don't have a ton of people here, so if y'all just have questions or want to say something, we can make it very intimate. Yeah. Anyone have anything to say? Thank you so much. All right. Well, in that case, what do you think, Mark? Should we let him go? Why not? All right. Yeah. Well, we will see you guys later. Thanks for coming out.